Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:30 p.m. I will call the Tuesday, June 15th meeting of the Superior Common Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Warren's on. I can hear him.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Ledeen. Here. Councilor Van Sickle. Here. Councilor Bender.
Here.
Councilor Sweeney. Here. Councilor Fennessy. Here. Councilor Elm. Here. Councilor Ludwig. Here. Councilor Sutherland. Here. Councilor Kern. Here. Councilor Grasky. Here. We have a quorum. First item is approval of the minutes from the June 1st regular council meeting.
Motion to approve.
The motion is by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Bender. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item 4 is public hearings. Public hearings to consider non-renewal of applicants in Part 2 of the 2021-22 alcohol report. All the three listed, Izzy's, Katie's, Itasca Bay, and Pizza Man, are all in compliance, and I am recommending approval.
So moved.
The motion is by Councilor Fennessy, the second by Councilor Ledeen to approve the three applicants. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item 2 is a public hearing to consider non-renewal of a Class B liquor and beer license for Lady Vi Enterprises, Inc., Vivian Rask, agent at 628 Tower. You do have before you tonight an agreement between Lady Vi's Enterprises and the City of Superior for conditional renewal of a Class B liquor and beer license, which has been signed by both attorneys and recommended approval from both the city attorney, police department, and the mayor.
Motion to approve.
Well, before we discuss the agreement, I'd like to invite our city attorney to present the details of the agreement and a little bit of the story for how we got here.
So this is unusual in that we, between law enforcement and my office and the mayor's office, with some interaction with management and ownership at this establishment earlier this year, we became convinced that there was slowly starting to build enough questionable conduct occurring at this establishment, particularly along the lines of excessive police calls for service and recently an inspection by agents from the Department of Revenue that resulted in the seizure of some narcotics and a stolen handgun. We determined that there was likely enough history with this establishment to justify presenting to you folks the idea of non-renewing their license. And as you know, liquor licenses have a natural life and death cycle that goes from June to June, and so we were obviously at that time. We started to prepare for that, and were approached by Mr. Opak, the owner of Lady Vi's, and his attorney, and we engaged in some discussions wherein we contemplated their continuation with the license with a host of conditions. And it's those conditions that you'll see in the document that is before you. We think, and when I say we, I primarily refer to my office, the mayor's office, and law enforcement. We think we have a real meaningful opportunity to affect a profound change in the management style at this place. We think we're going to see a 180 in how they do business there, and Mr. Opak is in the building with us tonight, and if I'm stating something he takes issue with, I trust him to come to the podium. You'll see in significant detail, I think anyway, the list of things that we expect from them for this license period, which is 1 year. 9 months when you consider that they're out of operation from now through mid-September. We've got details in there that include their obligation to provide us with an employee roster. When that roster changes, we want names of potential candidates for employment there before they're hired, so we can do background checks. We expect people there to wear something on their uniform that makes it clear that they're employees there, so there's no confusion when our officers are there to do an inspection, who is in the role of staff for the establishment. We are obligating them to complete training in anti-human trafficking, and they're to do that before they open again in mid-September, and they're to send new employees through that same training as they hire them. We even have a detail in there that obligates them to designate staff at the end of every shift to go outside and pick up beer bottles and trash. At the end of the day, we think it's going to work in all the parties' favor, and we expect to see, like I said moments ago, an abrupt change in how we're doing business there, behaviorally, aesthetically, and we can already vouch for a weekend of non-operation because they shut down on Friday before you folks have had a chance to review this agreement. So all in all, I think it's a well-considered agreement. They understand the thinness of the ice they're on now moving forward, mid-September moving forward when they reopen their doors. And I really like the detail in there that obligates their ownership to a monthly meeting with a designee from our police department. We'll send an officer or a command staffer down there and we'll do a charrette with them. We'll go through the business upstairs and down, inside and out. We'll look at things that are of concern to us, be it egress and ingress, security issues, and we'll engage with them about all of the things, big and small, that we expect them to take care of to continue to do business there.
So, councilors, the administration is going to recommend that you formally adopt this agreement or approve it. But before that, and unless you object, I'm going to take us out of regular order just to see, before we entertain any motions related to this license, are there questions about this process or this agreement that any of us can answer? I'm going to do my best to field those myself until I need some staff assistance. Councilor Sutherland.
Just for clarification, this was never emailed to us prior to this, correct?
That's right. This was a pretty 11th hour
Do you think
agreement.
it's fair to ask us if we have any questions about the agreement we just got 7 minutes ago? I'm just saying, it's just kind of a, right now, kind of a deal. So I don't know if any of us could have much questions on that.
Councilor Sutherland, unfortunately, according to statutes, the alcohol renewal licenses need to be approved or denied by June 15th. So that's where we are tonight.
The agendized item is a public hearing to formally consider non-renewal. It is within your rights to deny the renewal of this license or to fully approve it without conditions. This is an alternative that we have agreed very recently with the ownership that, of course, we and they believe is fair to all parties. Other questions or discussion? Councilor Swing, please.
Thank you. Just one question. Is the management team, if there is a management team, does that remain exactly the same?
No. So this license is issued to Mr. Opak. He must submit who his managers will be. In fact, we expressly demand or require that certain parties are removed entirely from the premises. If his managers must be submitted and other employees their names must be submitted to the City of Superior, we get to run background checks, and we have the right to deny that they work for the organization. Councilor Allen.
Yeah, Mayor, just kind of on Councilor Sutherland's thought processes. Would it be appropriate to take maybe a 15-minute break and have all of us read this? Continue on?
That is, we could, the option's available to you. We could move this to the back of the agenda. We could take a recess if that's something you'd want. Yes.
Okay. It just seems like it'd be a prudent thing to do, so we fully read it. So.
What are you proposing? Would you like a recess?
Yeah, I guess I'd make a motion for that so we can review this for a recess.
15 minutes?
15 minutes.
The motion is for a 15-minute recess. Is there objection? Okay, first, before you speak, Councilor, is there a second to the motion for a 15-minute recess?
Second.
The second is by Councilor Bender. Discussion is on whether we should recess. Councilor Fennessy?
Could we first get some questions in, and then I think a recess is a really good idea, but can we first get some questions in and then have the recess, or?
Absolutely, we just have to determine right now whether to recess right now or not. So
Okay, yeah.
I believe Councilor Fennessy is suggesting we vote down the motion to recess, ask questions, and then renew the motion to recess, which would all be in order. Further discussions on the merits of recessing for 15 minutes? Okay, then the question is whether we should recess right now for 15 minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
The motion fails. We are still back in regular order. Questions or discussion on the agreement? Councilor Fennessy.
With this, so is it my understanding that they're shut down completely right now, and Attorney Perrell, you said that they're going to be opening mid-September?
Yes.
They're eligible to reopen under this agreement on September the 11th if they satisfy all the rest of the criteria that we've listed.
Okay.
Such as submit a roster, an employee roster, successfully complete that training that's articulated.
Yep.
All those details.
Okay, yep. And then, so the alcohol license runs from April to April, so really this would, no? June to June.
July 1st through the end of June.
Okay, so that's where you're getting the 10 months or whatever it ends up being once they're up. If they, so there's a host of agreements in here or requirements. What happens, let's say there's 20 requirements. What happens if they miss on one of them? Then, I guess, then what?
If they violate the terms of this agreement, we can revoke their license permanently in the middle of the licensing year. We're obviously going to exercise some discretion on that. With the litter abatement business, we're not going to get jumpy over a cigarette butt on the sidewalk. Right. But if they're not tending to some of the things that we put a lot of stock in, like the employee roster, the training we've talked about, meeting with us on a monthly basis to talk about ongoing issues or security measures, those big picture items we're going to get real excited about.
Yep. And then,
Counselor, I just want to call your attention to the last sentence in the second to last paragraph of the agreement, because it answers your question, I think, fairly well. Licensee acknowledges that failure to strictly comply with all conditions stated in this agreement may result in the immediate revocation or further suspension of the license at the discretion of the city, and without need of administrative hearing that it might otherwise have under Chapter 125, meaning no further need to come to council at that point.
okay, and that was going to be my next question. If this supersedes the current non-renewal policy that we have for liquor license.
Yes, they are conceding that.
Yep. Okay. And then that would be just a leadership, between the mayor's office, the city attorneys, the police department that would collectively say, yeah, this is it's time.
Yes, the way I understand this agreement and why we want it to come before the council for a vote is you're effectively, correct me if this is too extreme, you're effectively revoking the license tonight if you adopt this, unless they meet every one of these terms.
Right. Yep. I like this. I mean, I think this makes sense. I think it could be used as a model. We've never done anything like this before, have we?
Not that I'm aware.
Not that I would.
Not in my career.
Yeah. I mean, I think this could be used as a model to clean up some of the other, problems.
I'm going to interrupt you, Council. I'd like to hold off speaking to the merits of the agreement since we don't have a motion on the floor and we're likely about to recess.
Okay.
I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And
Yep. No, that's fair.
do you have any more questions?
Just one more. So the background checks on the employees, is that just the managers, or is that every single employee?
It's everybody but dancers.
Okay. And then one of the other things that you said is that certain parties are not allowed on the premises, or they'll be removed from the premises. Are those spelled out in here, or is this just who you guys?
They are named in here.
They are, okay. Yep. Those were the only questions I had. Thank you.
Further questions up front? Councilor Sweeney.
I just heard you read that last sentence or paragraph. You said, these are some pretty serious allegations and charges, and I think other owners of similar business who are performing admirably, we've got to be concerned about them too, but you said they may be revoked, not will be revoked. So that may leaves me to think there may be some room to renegotiate or wiggle room. And so, is that your intent?
I can't speak. There are a few opinions at play here. Speaking for the mayor's office, we are looking for strict compliance, and we're looking for a disregard of this agreement, further disregard of the license conditions, threats to the safety of the public, the police department, their own employees. Yeah. The way the attorney described it, if they miss a cigarette butt in their cleanup, of course not. There is a matter of some discretion. If there's further criminal behavior, if they refuse to submit, if they hire people that we have not approved in advance, those are much more egregious offenses that could result in immediate revocation, yes.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm still, may and will are two different meanings, two different changes the whole thing. So if they violated some of these egregious things, I mean, in my opinion, there should be no third chance.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I just again defer to the attorney's argument. There might be something so small, in his example, a single cigarette butt, sure, but to your point, yes, we could revoke for a single cigarette butt if we so chose. Further questions? If not, it would be in order to take a recess if that was your pleasure now.
It needs another motion, is that correct? Yeah, motion to go into recess.
Is there objection now to a 15-minute recess?
I'll second that.
I'm seeing no objection, so I'm just going to declare us in recess until 7:02 p.m. In regular order, it is 7:02 PM. I will offer one more opportunity to ask. I will offer one more opportunity to ask any questions about the agreement. Otherwise, again, the administration recommends adoption or approval of the agreement. Councilor Elm.
Back when there was discussion from Attorney Perel, there's a mention of the exemption of background check of the dancers. So could there be a little more enlightenment on why that is? Or
I asked that they be exempted. The question was a clarifying one, whether they were counted as employees, because I believe they're actually considered independent contractors and not actual employees of this corporation. I felt pretty strongly that they shouldn't be included as employees because there is a high risk of exploitation and victimization within this industry, and subjecting them to things like background checks and human trafficking training risks further traumatizing or re-victimizing people that may have already been through a traumatic incident. So I felt, and then I followed up with a few calls to experts that confirmed my initial impression that it's generally pretty bad for victims or potential victims to subject them to this. They're not the ones who have done anything wrong here.
and the way this is written will allow us to do that, what you're explaining in Part C.
To everybody except the dancers, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this is Councilor Bender, and I have a question. So if we vote in, it says public hearing to consider non-renewal of the Class B liquor and beer license. So we're going to possibly vote in favor of them getting keeping their license, correct?
Yes. So, I mean, if you adopt our recommendation, it would be to grant the license subject to the terms of the agreement. If they violate the agreement, they automatically lose the license. If they meet the terms of the agreement, as defined and enforced by us, they are allowed to operate as normal.
Okay, sounds good. Now it's been clarified.
Councilor Sutherland.
May I ask, if maybe you already said it too, why September 1st?
90 days.
But to give us the employees and information, that we're giving them 90 days to do all that information. Are they going to be open during those 90 days?
No. Are you asking why 90 days?
So they're not going to be open until September 1, 2021, is that what I'm getting?
September 11th, but yes.
Okay. You have to give the roster or whatever, the team or the employees' names and whatever background checks by September 1.
Right.
Does anyone feel that doing this research going to be doing the background checks? Or do you feel like it's going to be a lot of work to do? I mean, is that something we're willing to do with this every year or every quarter or whatever, every time someone new gets hired?
Well, I asked them their current staffing levels, and I think it was less than half a dozen. So that's not going to overwhelm us. Obviously, there's going to be some in and out with staff, and we would expect them to have to make a hire or two throughout the course of the license year. But we'd also expect that not to overwhelm us from a background check or a records research standpoint.
So thank you, Attorney Pearl. So we're going to be doing background checks on their employees, and we're going to be sending in an officer into their establishment once a month just to make sure they're compliant with this contract. So that's more people we're getting involved in this, correct?
We're not, the monthly meeting doesn't necessarily involve our officer or officers going into the establishment. It's a meeting with ownership to discuss how things are going under this agreement, if you folks greenlight it tonight. It's a monthly conversation to go over police calls for service. Were you aware of that fight that broke out at 1:30 a.m. on Thursday? How's it going with your security detail? Do you have enough staff to tend to the ID functions? Are your bar staff keeping up with volume? Are you getting out there and abating the litter after every shift like we want you to? Those sorts of things. It's just a meeting to stay engaged and to be in position to acquaint them with how we feel things are going compared to how they were going before this agreement.
That requirement is pretty similar to how our nuisance ordinance works as well. So it's a regular meeting. The point of that is to have the police department help them understand the terms and comply. In terms of inspection, that's not named in this agreement. We already have the power to inspect any licensee in the city. It's something that the police department hasn't done as often recently, but it's something that in the course of all these conversations, the chief and several command staff said they intend to step it up on a number of licensees. So the random inspections will also occur, but that's not what the agreement's describing.
And I just hope you guys understand this is something unique. That's why I'm kind of around here, that we're at a spot here looking at a contract where we're going to make them put up sex trafficking posters, and we're going to inspect them. We're going to do background checks on a business. I mean, it's just something I just kind of get worried about it. Thank you.
Councilor Sweeney.
I have one more question. Is the ownership or the management going to be within the building? Are they going to be active managers or owners? Or are they absentee owner?
So that is a good question, because we expect that the owner is the primary manager and is operating the facility. We're issuing the license to a named person here, and so we expect that person to be responsible.
Okay.
However, we also recognize he can't manage it every hour that they're open.
No.
So that's why the attorneys included that language. We will know when he's not managing it, who is. And we will have not only performed the background check, but approved those people.
But the plan exists now for him to have an active, I'm not suggesting 24 hours, 7 days a week, but be active in 40 hours, whatever that is. He will be, or she will be in the building.
It doesn't name how much time, but it does presume that, yes, we are dealing with Norman OPAC and nobody else.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilor Fennessy.
In there, with the background checks aren't free. Who pays for that, the background checks?
Well, that's our time. We do background checks as a matter of course, really for a whole host of layers of licensing, contractors, bartenders, liquor license holders. That's just an administrative function that we perform.
So we already do background checks on all, I didn't realize that, okay. What about the cost of the human trafficking program that we're requiring them to go through. Is there a cost to that, or
There is, they pay it.
they pay it? And then is there any kind of reimbursement for the cost of the monthly meetings with the police department, police officers' time, anything like that?
Them reimbursing us?
Yeah.
No, no.
Okay.
I mean, if we went the route of the nuisance ordinance, we have, that allows us to start billing for certain officer time. But I think if we got to the point where we were triggering the nuisance ordinance, this agreement has been violated for some time.
Right.
So
Right.
this is just something, it is somewhat experimental, but that is our end of the deal.
I expect the monthly meetings with their ownership and our command staff from our police department to be an investment in time on our part. I mean, I think it's going to reduce calls for service enough on the other end that it's going to more than favor us.
Okay, that's fair. There's some pretty wild crimes listed in this. Is it? I mean, the crimes. It seems like it's been going on for a while. This wasn't just like a whoops. We screwed up and we're sorry. We're going to move forward. This has been going on for quite a while. Would it be proper to ask like the police chief just for an informal synopsis on what exactly? Because I mean, there's everything from marijuana to felonies to all of that. I mean, is there any way we can just get like a?
So I'll ask Chief Alexander to come up and describe generally the nature of the calls for service, say in the last 6 months to a year. While it's coming up, I'd point out, you're right that this is not new. This hasn't been the last few weeks. In fact, it rose to the level that I sent a formal letter to both this establishment and another, informing them that the nature of the calls that were happening there and what we were seeing had both those establishments well outside of compliance with the license, and that to not be in compliance was grounds for revocation. And so there was an invitation then to start working with us, and then many of the things you've seen here are subsequent to that letter. Chief.
So I think it's pretty fair to say a majority of the calls in the last 6 months, or even if we look at the past year, are going to be disorderly conducts, fighting. There's likely been some public urination or those types of public consumptions outside. When we start going outside of the premises, it's a little difficult because there's other licensed establishments, within walking distance. So you can't necessarily isolate it to a particular establishment. Within the past year, there was a shots fired incident out on the sidewalk, kind of in the area of 3 or 4 of the establishments down there. But that's the majority of them. There's certainly been a couple assaults that have risen to a higher level, like a felony level assault. But that's, other establishments have that as well. I think probably the more defining thing that brings us here today is we have this incident with the DOR that really links people that were in charge of the facility being involved in criminal activity. And they're the ones specifically that are, going to be not allowed on the premise under this agreement.
And you're talking about the seizure, the drug
Correct.
seizures. And was that an amount of narcotics where it'd be personal use, or is that to the level where this is beyond personal use? This was that they were here to sell.
Based on quantity and packaging, I think it's a fair reference to say it was likely meant for sale to other people.
Okay. And then how long, like when you say that in here it talks about there's I don't remember what the word was, but either an excessive amount or whatever of calls. Is it substantially more on a regular basis than the same exact establishment right across the street, or a similar type bar 3 blocks down?
Without running the numbers for all the other establishments, I can't say, but I certainly think it's above average.
Okay. All right. That's
And some of them are self-initiated. Our officers know that based off of the number of people that they see entering the, cars and parking lots and so on. Some of the calls we self-initiate in the sense that we do checks on our own, based off of kind of making a presence to try to keep the peace.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. I didn't have any more questions for you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
The only thing that I'll say is that on the surface, when we were first given this, it looked like a nice solution to curb, a problem that we've got going on. But after looking into this even deeper, I mean, this is nothing more than charging the city to babysit an establishment. And the city isn't in the babysitting business. Instead, we need to be cultivating an environment where we're attracting businesses and business owners that don't need to be babysat with an agreement like this. I think this is beyond what we should be doing.
Further questions? Councilor Van Sickle.
Thank you. I want to first acknowledge that in this industry, there's an extraordinary responsibility to take care of the women, the contractors, to make sure that they are safe, that they are autonomous of age. And this is an unprecedented effort. And the effort the city has put in to keep this business open and operating this year with visionary tenants is extraordinary under a tight deadline. It's a heavy lift, and just want to thank all of those folks involved. My question, though, is item I. It says licensee shall designate staff to abate litter on the premises to include sidewalks and rights-of-way adjacent to the licensed premises after every shift. And I don't want to be too far in the weeds here, but what time is after shift? Of course, we want to make sure that this is paid work, that the employee is being mandated to perform, but I'm also in the same vein when we're talking about the safety of employees, and particularly women. I don't want to envision a bartender heading outside at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to pick up beer bottles alone. And, I don't know if after shift could be somebody in the morning, like at 5 p.m. or something to that effect. I don't know. And maybe that's something we work out, but I don't want to inadvertently put somebody in harm who's out picking up bottles in an alley alone. I wouldn't want to do that. So I don't want to mandate that anybody else have to do that. So I don't know if there's an immediate solution that we can amend here, but something to consider. What is after shift?
So I don't believe we can entertain amendments to the agreement. It's already agreed to by the parties. This is sort of a take it or leave it agreement, but I would point out that the city's not actually managing the operation. We are controlling the conditions, and there's a limit to how much we can control how they will create those conditions. So they're the management entity. Our interest is that the litter is picked up. Further questions? Again, at this point, we will entertain motions. The recommendation of the administration, again, is to approve this agreement.
I will so move.
Second.
Motions by Councilor Bennett, second by Councilor Van Sickle to approve the agreement. Is there a discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hold on. We will proceed by roll call.
Counselor Ledeen. Aye. Counselor Van Sickle.
Yes.
Counselor Bender.
Aye.
Counselor Sweeney.
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy.
No.
Counselor Elm.
Yes.
Counselor Ludwig. Yes. Counselor Sutherland.
No.
Counselor Kern.
Yes.
Counselor Grasky. That passes 8-2.
The motion carries. And the agreement is adopted. I'm going to just plunge right into the mayor's report. I'm going to cede my time for report. Counselors, I sent you an email late last week. Fire Chief Gordon will not be able to make our meeting next week to discuss his budget initiatives. So I wanted to offer both you and him the chance to answer any questions now. I'd point out that we will have fire staff. At next week's meeting. I'm also very familiar with the proposals. So we'll be able to answer more questions then. This is not your last crack at the fire department, but this is your crack at the chief. So are there questions about the proposals that the fire department submitted for the 2022 general fund and capital improvement plan? Councilor Sweeney.
This will not eliminate my opportunity to ask more questions, correct?
Not at all.
Okay. I'd be disappointed. Even at a different date. One thing that struck me was and my nautical skills are very limited, but to buy some form of a craft that's going to be involved, and I think a good share of it's paid for by the federal government. It's going to patrol the waters between Lake Superior.
Correct, in all the navigable waters, and that's it's a FEMA grant that we applied for.
Right.
The amount in the ask is the 25% match in said grant.
So my question is that working with this, so I assume the city is going to pay the other 25% and the maintenance is going to fall on the city of Superior?
Correct.
But we work with the city of Duluth and other municipalities along the lake?
Yes, and the Coast Guard.
Okay. So we're on call for something where this boat, is it a boat? Is that what you call it?
Correct, it's an airboat.
Okay. Can be used, right?
Yes.
So let's say we had to go over to the North Shore. Okay? Do we absorb all those costs, or what? How does that work?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So
It happens on a semi-regular basis already. You know, our fireboat right now, which has been in the water for the last decade, that gets utilized by varying entities, just like we will call upon Marine 19, which is Duluth's fireboat, and we all pay our own expenses unless we have a billable spiller. So in other words, if there was an entity, a private company that required our response and we could bill them, we would do that, but normally we do not.
So Duluth, if it's Duluth, they would provide a service to Superior.
Correct, and they have, yes.
A different service,
Yes.
and they do.
Yep, their boat is in the water 7.5 months out of the year, and that's largely the advantage of what this craft would be, which is why it's desired in the port by a lot of different entities, because once they take their boat out of the water, we take our boat out of the water as well. There are no response boats that are in the water. We had 2 instances just last year alone that we didn't have a boat in the water ready to go, and this would have fit that bill.
Okay, that answers that part of it for now. Thank you.
Are there other questions for the fire chief? Councilor Elm.
All right. The question I have is regarding the proposal of Station 4. You've described the benefits of that, but could you explain, I mean, is there history on this where we had more stations in the past, and what is the difference of providing another station, and then would that change the staffing levels as well, or are we spreading out the folks that we have? I know there's a lot of questions to this. This certainly wouldn't be one of the more affordable things, but maybe you can elaborate on what that would look like in your mind.
I can, and I would entertain it. Yes, we used to have 4 stations. 1979 was when we lost, so to speak, our 4th station, went to our current model, which is the triangulation model that has existed in the city since 1980. Is what I'm proposing is we will eventually at some point whether it's in my tenure or farther down the road of any of your tenures, we will reach that breaking point that I referred to in the request. When we went from 4 stations down to 3 stations, we were doing about just over 1,000 calls a year, 1,200 calls a year. As I noted in the request, we did 4,044 calls last year. That is just one piece of the pie, one piece of the puzzle. The responses themselves, and then the strain on said firefighters, not to mention just the practicality of continually doing it with 3 stations. We want the city to grow. That's what all of you, I would suspect, would appreciate as well. So what I'm coming at it from a stance of, what will the chief in 10 years from now or 20 years from now wish that I would have done in 2021 to help support that growth? And that's what this is referring to. The advent of a 4th station does a lot of things for us. And yes, you're correct, Counselor, it will have a staffing component to it. The request I put in there is just solely on the concept of it. It hasn't been addressed officially before. It's been talked about internally in our department. I felt responsible to bring it to you, and when we went through this process last year, it didn't seem like the time to do it amidst the pandemic. Now I can see a time where we are experiencing a high workload of training and of strain on our members. We can't stop people from calling 911. So looking at possibilities in the future of how we can make that so we have a long-term plan, that's what this is largely about.
Thanks for that answer, but would it be feasible to add more staffing to the 3 stations to garner a similar result, or is that, what's the differences there?
Yes and no. The disadvantage of doing that is we wouldn't get the bang for the buck, if you will, on decreasing response time. That's the biggest thing that a 4th district would do, is it would decrease response time. And then we also have the ability to exist in our current triangular model by having that 4th station, whether it's request on a mutual aid, just like Councilor Sweeney was talking about. We get requested to do mutual aid all the time. When we do that now, our triangular system that was designed in 1979 doesn't work, because now one of the 3 is out of their jurisdiction. That used to happen maybe once a week back then. Now it happens almost every day, where one of our stations is out of their jurisdiction, whether it's because of mutual aid request, whether it's because they're over in Duluth with one of the ambulances, whether it's because there's multiple things going on. This 4th district would allow us to still have our current triangle even when we're under a moderate duress, whether it's assisting other members or just flat out controlling the call volume. So we wouldn't get that ISO drop either as well. That's another proponent. I know you've heard me talk about ISO in the past. Having a 4th district would help with that, because ISO we can get into a long time here, and I'll waste a bunch of your time if we get into the nerdy formula that is derived into ISO. But it's largely on how many people are responding with how many apparatus. So if you have 10 people responding on one apparatus, ISO doesn't recognize that nearly as much as if you had 10 people responding on 10 apparatus. So it's about finding that formula. So if we put more people on the fire trucks, yes, that's great to decrease the workload on the individual fire truck, but what we haven't done is decrease the amount of times that those people go on an individual call, or the amount of apparatus that are available 24/7 in our municipality.
All right, thank you for that.
Further questions for the fire chief? Councilor Sutherland.
Just for clarification, I think, is the ISO, is that lower insurance rates and everything too? Is that what you're getting at? And that's a rating
Correct.
system that all of our business and homeowners, whatever insurance is based off of that rating, right?
Correct. And right now, our ISO rating is fantastic. We are a 3X, which is coveted, top 10% in the country. With a 4th district, I have mapped out the possibility of us getting to a 2X. We'd be in the top 5% of municipalities in the entire country. Pretty amazing to think about, but that's not going to happen overnight. That's why Councilor Elm's question is perfect. This is looking down the road of how are we going to continue to get better and do better as we grow. Having a lower ISO rating makes it much easier for the rest of you to do your jobs in shopping the city.
Thank you.
Before I go back to Councilor Sweeney, Councilor Van Sickle.
Thank you. why did the triangulation model happen at all?
That's a good question. I wasn't here in 1979.
Neither was I.
I know. I don't think any of us were. That I don't know. I would surmise it was budgetary.
Okay.
Largely, at that time, the 4 stations had never been looked at as being replaced one at a time. So the current stations that we are in right now, obviously, you know, our new station was just built 2 years ago, but prior to that, all 3 of those stations were built in 1980, 1981, and 1982. One each year. That's how the city made the transition from 4 fire stations down to 3.
Okay. I didn't know if it was population rated or just funsies.
You know, if you look back at the history of the fire department, at one point, there were 65 firefighters that were on duty, that were on the department. Our staffing went down to 30, you know, not that long ago. We are continually going back, and I think it's progression. This is just a look at how much further should we or could we progress.
Okay. I just would want to track the population and see if it matches that staffing decrease.
Before you move on from that point, Counselor, I just want to clarify something. You said triangulation model. Is this a plan that's written down somewhere?
The triangulation model?
Yes.
No, it's just what the 3, if you look at where the 3 fire stations are, they make up a perfect triangle, which is similar to the shape of our city. And what's in the middle is the large space that is not populated in the airport and the petroleum district. Back in 1980, we didn't have anywhere near the population down in South End. I mean, the village, I mean, what was your district like back then? And you went around to see it, but I used to go see movies out there, and now there's 1,000 people living where there used to be a movie theater. In that triangulation model, none of that South End population was there. Oliver existed, but hardly at all. And our relationship with the county was non-existent. Largely from the county, we respond to the south, therefore leaving that southern part of our city really marooned in response capabilities.
Okay. And I have to imagine that the industrial impact has also gotten more of a presence now.
Largely.
Yeah. The ISO rating, I understand the need to want to keep that at low or high.
Low is good.
Low is good. I have to imagine building a new station could also impact people's taxes negatively. But that being said, what are your average response times?
4 minutes, 30 seconds is what we get credit for. When ISO comes and does the nerdy formula I was referring to, and they look at 80% of the time, we have to be there in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
And
If we meet that, we get full points for that response part.
And a 4th station would reduce the time from 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
To something less.
Okay.
Don't mean to be ambiguous, but it's impossible to map. But no matter what, if you look at 4,044 calls with 3 stations, it would drop by 25% the run volume per station. Therefore, it would have to go down.
Okay.
The model of the 4th station that I've put on still leaves the triangle plan in place, but that 4th station would take care of the southern end of our population, which is largely our longest response, much like your district way out in East End has been addressed. We'd like to get that southern district so we can respond to the county when we're requested to go out on mutual aid, and then also Oliver. We do not protect Oliver anymore. We used to, it wasn't that long ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we used to handle fire protection in Oliver. We do not anymore. The town of Superior does that, largely because we are not equipped. When we started looking 10 years ago about how we're going to handle this increase in run volume, we had to look at what we were doing, and we were spending resources on a regular basis protecting Oliver. We had to maroon Oliver, not that the town of Superior doesn't do a good job. They're a fantastic fire department, but they're a volunteer fire department. During the day, during the week, they call us for mutual aid if they can't respond to their calls out there, and we oblige that because we honor their mutual aid agreement.
Okay. And Station 2 has the highest run volume on the 3 stations, is that right?
Correct, and the smallest response district because of the densely populated area that is North End.
Okay. And over 4,000 calls last year. How many of those are fires?
Hard to define, Counselor. Again, don't mean to be ambiguous because a fire could be anything from a campfire to I can answer it this way. 82% of our calls on an average basis over the last 10 years are medical. So you can subtract 82% from whatever number we have on average over the 10-year period. Those are medical response. The rest, the other 18%, are mixed in with largely fire, but fire is a hard thing to define just because of what is a fire.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for the fire chief? Counselor Fennessy.
With the, kind of just to piggyback on that one thought real quick with the new fire hall in, if it was to be like in South End, would it be fair to say that if we were to do something like that, we'd be beefing up the certainly the South End, but would that also force us, maybe force is the wrong word, but force us to start covering outside of our jurisdiction and outside of our taxpayer base?
I wouldn't say force, I would say allow. And I'm envisioning a time where we, the city of Superior, are going to be asked more and more to do with in the county. I live in the county. The county's response on medical and fire has been dwindling. I'm part of the association that is trying to deal with that issue. And I don't want to put any more burden on the city of Superior. However, many of us live in the county as well. And we have agreements with Town of Superior to our south and Parkland immediately to our east. Those are our two neighboring volunteer departments. And we get called on them for mutual aids. We do. And the Oliver piece is a great example of that.
Okay. The bigger question I had was the proposal on the revolving fund. And I know this came up when we were looking at, I think it was last year, for the new fire truck. And you put together the plan where basically if we follow this perfectly, we're never going to have to struggle to look to bond to find money for whether that's fire rigs, breathing apparatus, whatever. So what's different? What's in this proposal that isn't already in the CIP? Is it just underfunded in the CIP? Is that?
No, the document you're referring to is the amortization chart that I presented to the Finance Committee last year, the beginning of the year last year. And as what we're doing, the snapshot, what I wrote in the proposal project, that's the 5-year snapshot of that 15-year amortization chart. So you are correct, that amortization chart allows the Finance Committee to always see what it is we need to respond to do our jobs. So it's what's different largely in this one is in the 5-year window, now we bring in Engine 3, which is set to come out of compliance in 2026. So this number reflects that. Yes, to answer your question is yes, that number is as close as I can estimate off of current amounts what we would need to do our job on a daily basis, with also keeping track of what's in front of us. So we won't have to have the same discussions we had with the next engine, which will be in 2026.
All right, yep. All right, thanks, Chief.
Further questions? If not, again, I'll remind you, if you come up with more questions, we will have command staff next week, and we will do our best to answer those.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief Gordon.
Do you have anything more for the mayor's report? Okay. Item number 7.1 is the Public Works Committee recommendations from June 3rd. A report from the chair. Okay.
The motion is to approve the entirety of the business of the Public Works Committee. Counselor? The motion is by Counselor Van Sickle, second by Counselor Ludwig, to approve all the business of the June 3rd Public Works Committee. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please. Counselor Kern.
I think it would be fair just to once again address, I know the paper picked it up and we did discuss in Public Works about the adoption of changing our garbage routes. So if anyone's listening tonight, if they haven't seen that yet or not, that will be taking place, I believe, August 2nd?
August 2nd sounds right. Anybody want to disagree? August 2nd. Yes, thank you, Counselor.
Item 8.1.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
further discussion on the Business Public Works Committee? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 8.1 is the Redevelopment Authority of June 9th.
I do not have a report there. Our chairs are not here. You have before you simply a resolution to approve the cooperation agreement for the project that's we hope to take place on Barton Avenue. So we can move right into that. I'm sorry, you want to read item 1? It's a resolution.
No, that's just a resolution of the redevelopment authority, so we
Also
don't.
doesn't have to be read?
Yeah.
What is your pleasure on the resolution? Motion is by Councilor Kern, second by Councilor Fennessy. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 10.1, I'm recommending approval of miscellaneous licenses.
Motion to approve.
Motion is by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Kern. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries.
I'm recommending approval of an ordinance amending the City Code of Ordinances, relocating the 6th Aldermanic District and the 10th Aldermanic District polling place from the Salvation Army to the Government Center.
Motion is by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Grasky. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion carries. Councilors, I have to interrupt our agenda one more time. I know it's getting late, but we've invited Sean from Ellers to give a brief presentation on the nature of TIFs. You're about to be asked to approve several resolutions relating to tax increment districts and tax increment financing. It's been a while since you've had this presentation. We have a few new councilors, and this is relatively complex stuff, and you may well be asked questions about how this financing takes place. I know I've been fielded very challenging questions from regular members of the public. So Sean should provide you the 101 version, maybe not the 403 you get at Planning Commission. Perfect. You want to hit the light there.
Yeah,
Looks like a person speaking.
Somebody who knows. Perfect. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mayor. We've got a presentation set up. It's got two components for the council this evening. The first part will be a little bit just about tax increment financing in general, as the mayor pointed out, and then the back half of the discussion will be on the two districts that are up for council review at this point. As always, from my perspective, I'm hoping more than anything else, as the mayor pointed out, to be able to answer questions that the council has. So if you have something as I move through the material, feel free to interrupt me, and I'll happy to take those right away. So just broadly, what is tax increment financing? It really is the chief economic development tool that's used in Wisconsin, as well as many other states throughout the country. And why is it a very popular tool? Because it ends up dedicating a source of revenue or source of funding other than taking money from other areas of the city, other funds, other departments. It creates a new dedicated source of funding to pay for development or redevelopment. And that's why it can be a very successful tool. The concept in general is to take an area in the community and really use this tool either to develop it or redevelop it. And commonly the goals are adding tax base long-term, both for the city as well as for the other taxing jurisdictions, or to create new job opportunities, housing options, and to oftentimes to redevelop a blighted site or an underdeveloped site in the community. Now, how does the funding side of tax increment work? I'll try to go through just the steps in creating a district and through the history of the district, and hopefully that'll give you an idea of how that revenue gets generated. So at the outset of creating a tax increment district, we'll sit with city staff, both legal and planning, and look at an area, geographical area in the city. That geographical area has a generally has a taxable value to it unless it's owned by a governmental entity, the city, the county, or the school district. If it isn't, and it can be, if it does, it's a zero value for tax purposes. But otherwise, if it has some taxable value, that's called the base value of a tax increment district. That base value is already being taxed, and each of the taxing jurisdictions are getting revenue from that base value. That will not change when you create a tax increment district. So the district isn't pulling that revenue away that the taxing jurisdictions are collecting and putting to use for expenses that each of them have. But what's unique when you create a tax increment district is once the district is created, that base value is frozen for the life of the tax increment district. And any new value that's created from, say, a redevelopment or brand new construction, that value is categorized as increment value. And instead of the value going to the school district, the county, the tech college, and the city's general fund, it goes to the tax increment fund. All of those different taxing jurisdictions share go to the tax increment district fund to help with the goals of the tax increment district: blight elimination, industrial development, mixed use development, those types of goals for which you would create a tax increment district. And when I say it goes to that fund, it is there then to pay for expenses, either generally in the form of an incentive or in the form of infrastructure improvements that are necessary to assist in new development or redevelopment occurring in that area. And again, it's that new development or redevelopment that creates the increment value that then creates the new tax revenue to pay for those expenses. So again, the key is we're striving to create new value in the city, and we want to use that new value to pay for the cost associated to really stimulate that in the first place. At the end of the life of the tax increment district, so it's paid back all its costs, and hopefully it's achieved its goal of eliminating blight, creating job opportunities or housing opportunities, whatever those might be. At the end of the life, that value, that increment value, goes back and now becomes part of the tax base for the city's general fund, the school district's general operations, the counties, and the tech college. So before I move ahead, any questions on that portion? I know some of you have heard me talk about that before. Okay. Now, one of the keys to use this tool is what's called the but-for analysis. And so this is something that when we begin at the staff level to talk about using tax increment, we have a discussion about. It's really asking the question, is this development or redevelopment that we're looking at, is it likely to occur on its own? On its own in the way the city would like to see it happen, so meeting your standards, what you're hoping to achieve, same time frame, maybe something will happen 15 years from now, but we'd like to see something occur sooner. And finally, maybe it's if it's not going to occur at all, it's no taxable value, but by using TIF, maybe we're able to get a higher and better use than something that would go in there but not really achieve what the city's trying to see in that area. If you can meet that, what we call that but-for test, but for using this financing tool, the development or redevelopment as we've defined it is unlikely to occur, then you're able to go forward with the process of creating a district and using tax increment as a tool. And this is a question that is not asked just of you, but it's also asked of the other taxing jurisdictions who have an active role when the city wants to create a district. So the mayor and Jason sit in discussions often with what's called the Joint Review Board, and they have discussions with us about creating or amending tax increment districts, and they get a vote, and they ask these same questions, that but-for analysis. Why does the city need this tool in this case? And finally, I've alluded to it earlier already, but I just wanted to reinforce. So what type of expenses do we commonly see using the new revenue in a tax increment district from the increment value that's created? What do we commonly see those dollars being spent on in order to stimulate development or redevelopment in a defined area within the city? Public works improvements and improvements are very common. Financing costs, if you end up having to finance a project, pay it over time, interest is very common. Land costs, land assembly costs, other professional administrative costs. Sometimes Community Development or Redevelopment Authority, Superior uses that very effectively. If there's relocation, utility infrastructure, sometimes cash grants or development incentives, direct type incentives are also an eligible cost. Occasionally environmental remediation in order to make a site rebuildable or redevelopable. And finally, if projects are similar in nature to the goal of the tax increment district's boundaries itself, you also have the ability to do projects outside the boundaries of the district, but within a half mile. And that could be any of these other eligible expenses, infrastructure projects, or say an incentive. Any questions on TIF in general that maybe I didn't touch on? Otherwise, where I was going to go from here is briefly just talk about District 16 and 17 that the city is currently working on.
Can the base value of the TIF ever be decreased once it's set?
It could go down.
Right.
But before the TID collects revenue, you have to make it up.
That's what I thought.
So, in a real quick example for the council, let's say we had a one parcel TIF that had an existing building on it that was in bad shape, and the TID was created. The building was still there. It had $200,000 of value, land and improvement together. If we created the TID and knocked that building down, that $200,000 in base value, when we create a new building there, so a new developer comes in, builds a new building for business, we got to make up that $200,000 in base value first so that the other jurisdictions don't lose that revenue. And then anything up above that $200,000 would be captured in increment value. Does that answer your question? It does. Okay. Good. All right, so let's transition to the two districts then that the city's currently looking at. First, District 17 or 16 is what we call an overlay district. It's overlaying TID number 9, which is the Winter Street district. This district 9 has done very well, but there are a number of properties out there that have remained undeveloped. And so the idea was because the expenditure period and the life of TID 9 is winding down, the idea was to create a new district so that the economic development group can continue their efforts to promote mixed use, which is commercial and industrial, in this case, development out in this area. And as the city has done in the past, the concept is we'll use a mixture of incentives and infrastructure assistance on a case-by-case basis, depending on what new opportunities and developments would come out there, to expand commercial and industrial development, continue to do so in this area for the city overall. We do make a finding that at least 50% of the area that we're going to put in the district is suitable for mixed-use development. Mixed use is a combination of two of the three, commercial, industrial, residential, and we certainly meet that here with goals to facilitate commercial and industrial development in this area. And we're really looking over the life of the TIF for a combination of, as I'd mentioned, incentives as well as some additional infrastructure, maybe some rebuilding of some of the existing out in that area. The other thing I did, and I have this on both the slides for 16 and 17, but just I'll mention it with 16. when we create a plan, we're looking really at a 20-year window for the TID. That's the maximum life for this type of district, a mixed-use district. We put in a number of expenditures into the budget for the TID, and we create a finance plan for the TID. But the projects themselves, by being put in the plan, make them eligible to be paid for with this fund. But they don't automatically approve the projects. You as a council and the mayor will take those on an individual basis and make decisions to move forward. So approving the TID plan allows you then to use the tool, but the individual projects still have to go through a normal process for city review and approval. So the plan itself doesn't automatically approve those expenditures and those projects. This slide is difficult to see, obviously, on your screen, and I don't know if you've got stuff in front of you, but what I wanted to highlight on this is, from a revenue standpoint, we're looking at, hopefully over the life of this district, somewhere in the range of about 19 million in new taxable value being developed on that site, which over the life of the district will hopefully generate somewhere around 6.9 million to pay back either incentives or infrastructure projects as the city moves through the implementation of promoting commercial and industrial development in this area. Sorry, I'm moving away from the microphone there. And as I'd mentioned, we also do a finance plan that's in the project plan itself, the 30 to 40 page document that goes along with this. This is the executive summary we're looking at here. And based on the expectation that 19 million is a reasonable threshold to develop out in that area, and a combination of incentives and infrastructure assistance in the form of the pay-as-you-go incentives. And just for the council, again, what we strive to do when we can using TID is provide the incentives to developers or businesses on a pay-as-you-go basis. If I haven't mentioned that before to you, it's a new concept. Just real quick, we recommend that when we can do it, because it's in a model where the development group puts in their own costs up front, so they shoulder those costs, and you as the city and your redevelopment authority agree when TIF revenue is available, you will take that and pay it back to them to reimburse them for their costs. That model is one way to do it. The other is what we call more of a traditional type TIF model, where the city issues debt, which ultimately the city is responsible to pay regardless of the success of the TID in generating new revenues or not. So there's a little more risk with that model, because if for whatever reason revenues aren't coming from that TID, the city still has to make the payments. With the pay-as-you-go model, if the revenues don't come in, the developer or the business is taking more of those risks. So we expect in this TID likely to have a blending of both, probably a little more weighted to the pay-as-you-go model over the life of district number 16. Any questions on that before I move to district 17? All right. 17, whereas 16 is a mixed-use district, 17 is a blight elimination district. And the decision as to what to use is generally predicated on the status of the property. In this case, the property was able to meet the blight finding under the TIF law, and it was a real good fit for the district. What we're hoping to do in this area is expand housing opportunities in the city by promoting an apartment development in this tax increment district. We were able, as I mentioned, to make the blight finding. And there's a couple different projects that are built into the plan that we think will achieve that goal. There's incentives related to assisting the apartment group in covering all of the expenses to provide new housing options on this site. There are some pedestrian improvements given the area that we think are very important to make this a safe area for adding new housing opportunities. There's also the 28th Street some additional infrastructure projects that we think will help with the overall elimination of blight and, again, achieving a safe, productive area for the community. That project, as I think I mentioned before, there's those projects that can occur within the boundaries of the TID and also projects that can be outside but within a half mile. And certainly some of that project falls into that category. And we also believe there might be some property acquisition. The property as it is now is owned, I believe, partly by the city and partly by the school district. So depending on how things move forward, there may be some acquisition costs involved as well. The last couple slides, very similar to what I talked about with 16. In 17, we're looking at a number of about 14 million in total new value or increment value being created in the district, which will generate over the life of the district somewhere in the range of 7.4 million in new tax revenue over the life. And again, our model with a combination of pay-as-you-go incentives and then some debt issued to finance those infrastructure projects, the 28th and some of the pedestrians costs potentially, and also maybe the property acquisition. A blending of both, we feel that the 14 million is very doable in terms of creating new revenue out there with a successful district, and that would be able to cover those costs and pay it back potentially before even the full life of this district. This district, as a blight elimination district, does have a little longer term, up to 27 years, whereas District 16 has a 20-year limit on it. Finally, just to take you through the steps, a couple of weeks ago, close to a month, we had a couple meetings here where we initially met with that joint review board that I referenced earlier. We talked with them about what the city's expectations for District 16 and 17 were. We then, after that initial meeting with them, held a Plan Commission public hearing where the Plan Commission heard much the same information that you're hearing this evening. They approved a resolution moving forward the creation of District 16 and 17 to the City Council. And that's where we're at today on the 15th. I do have a typo up there, as your attorney, Mr. Tofty, pointed out to me. We are, if the council does approve the creation of the two districts tonight, on the 17th, not on the 18th, that joint review board will reconvene here at the city, and then they will review the transcript. That'll be step number one. And step number two, they'll have two resolutions, one for 16 and one for 17, to hopefully approve the creation of the districts as well, assuming the council wants to do that. I would say, I think the mayor was there, and I know Jason and Bob, I think Ashley was there as well. The initial feedback, as I read the group, was the Joint Review Board was in favor of the creation of both districts. So with that, I appreciate your attention on this, and I would turn it back, Mayor, to you and the council for any additional questions before moving on those resolutions.
So, councilors, the next four items are resolutions relating to TIF districts 16 and 17. So I'm just going to ask if there are any questions relating to anything in Sean's proposal or any of these projects or resolutions. Councilor Sweeney.
I just have a general question. How successful has the city of Superior been with the number of TIFs from starting with, I assume it started with one up to?
Yeah.
How successful have the city been?
Yeah, I would say you've been very successful overall. In fact, prior to me discussing 16 and 17, I was reviewing a few things with Ashley. When we talk with the Joint Review Board, we're also going to talk about an annual report to them, asking the same question that you're asking. And we are now likely in a position to be closing District 7, 8, and 9 very shortly. 11 probably a year or two out. And those districts all have accomplished their goals and have brought, I a combination of new job opportunities, housing opportunities, increased tax base, all of those, and they've paid all their expenses back, which is really goal number one. So I would say Superior has used tax increment financing very effectively.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Councilor Fennessy?
You said the TID 16 was a 20-year limit. What was TID 17?
17 is a maximum 27 years.
Okay.
And just for the council, when you create these districts, the first 15 or 22 years, or 5 years before the end of the life, that's the term where you can incur costs to charge it against the district. And those last 5 years, you can't get any new costs, but you can pay back existing costs that you have. So you've got the front end of the life of the district to do projects and charge it to the district. The last 5 years are reserved only for paying back costs.
If you need it.
If you need it. And
Okay.
that's a good point. Districts do not have to run out to their maximum date. If they've achieved their goals and paid everything off, they can be closed early.
Okay, yep. And so if I'm also understanding it right, TID 17 is for a specific project. We've got a project in mind. We're able to plug it into the matrix there to show that it works. But TID 16 is more of a let's create this to give us some tools to attract some development. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I'll defer to Jason if some of the projects discussions are still in the phase where they're somewhat private, but I know that at the south end of District 16, there is a strong likelihood that we're going to see something at the front end of the plan. I don't know if that's, yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping to tackle a project there at the corner of where the old Manning Motel is, hopefully in the next year or two. The other thing that we have is we have quite an investment in the properties that we own, which are the redevelopment authority owns, which is that kind of that triangle piece north of where Lakehead is on the Lakehead Road. So it kind of one of the reasons for doing that is just to give us a little more time to kind of get some of that back as well. District has done well, as Sean has said. It's paid back, but we've got an investment. I want to make sure that we can provide some incentives for some companies up there. We have some decent land, all the utilities are there, and we are seeing some interest again, and hopefully construction costs will come down and we'll be able to kind of fill those up. The unique thing about this district is there's a lot of private ownership as well, and private owners love this stuff. That's just something that helps them sell. We've expanded the district a little bit to include some properties on the other side of Maryland, and they all acquiesced with no problem. So, yeah.
So how does that work? So I understand the TID 17. This is a specific project where we're going to use it for this. By us approving the TID 16 to date, the creation of it, does that still give you the flexibility to kind of create what you need, or are you going to be continuously coming back to the council to insert some of these in there?
No, I think this gives us enough land to deal with here for a while,
Okay.
Enough property. Again, when we kind of look at these things, we look at what's available, what is served already, what has infrastructure, and being able to look at the developability of the land, if that's a word. But anyway, that's kind of what we look at, and we feel that this area is kind of there.
And the goal of creating that before a specific project like 17 is just to kind of get a jump start on some real development.
And like we alluded to, we will have a project,
right,
and in probably a year or two.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
Development agreements still require council approval. This just is the financing tool that would fund such an agreement. So the council would still be approving projects.
Right,
absolutely.
But we right now this is that like TID 17 in my mind makes a ton of sense because you see what's in there, what's going out, all of that. But the TID 16, the creating TID 16 doesn't require a specific. We're going to put this project here, this project over here to make sure that it makes sense. We can create that before we have an actual
correct
plan. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right. No, that's great. Thanks.
Councilor Kern?
Jason, you might want to stay up there real quick. Kind of on both sides. I know that you said our success rate for our TIDs have been fairly well over all the years. And I remember I believe when I first got on council, we did have one TID that was struggling very, very bad. And we've now turned that TID around, and congratulations on all the work that the city has done on that. Does this allow, because I believe we borrowed from one TID to another on that, correct? So with the creation of these two, we're still able to do that, or is this a separate form, or is that ability there?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, and Sean could probably answer this a little better, this is totally separate. So we're using, what we were using, and Sean mentioned that we're probably going to be able to close 7. We've been using the revenues from 7, extended that, and putting it into 11. Now that we have some development in 11, we've been able to offset that, and Sean could talk a little bit more about that, but essentially we're comfortable enough, we're going to be able to pay down our debt that we, you know, distress number 11, to be able to close 7, so we're not relying on that anymore. But these two are separate.
Okay,
definitely.
thank you. It was just another option too that the council might not have known about through finance.
point.
That
Good point.
That ability is there as well.
Any further questions? Then we will move on to the resolutions.
Item 10.3 is a resolution of the City of Superior approving the project plan establishing the district boundaries and making relevant findings to the creation of tax incremental district number 16.
Motion by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Sutherland. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
10.4 is a resolution approving the project plan establishing district boundaries and making relevant findings to the creation of tax incremental district number 17.
The motion is by Councilor Kern, second by Councilor Sutherland. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
10.5 is a resolution of the City of Superior approving the report of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Superior and a cooperation agreement with the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Superior in connection with the Barden apartment projects.
Motion is by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Elm. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
10.6 is a resolution providing for the contribution payments by the city in connection with the tax increment grants and the maximum amount of $1,900,000 in connection with the Barden Apartments LLC project and approving related documents and transactions.
Motion by Councilor Kern, second by Councilor Fennessy. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
10.7 is a resolution providing for the issuance and sale of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 21 or 2021B of the City of Superior.
Motion is by Councilor Elm, second by Councilor Kern. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. We have no further business, councilors, and are adjourned. Thank you.